Biden says that Israel should not target Iranian nuke facilities. What are your thoughts on that? What should Israel respond?
I mean, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's the biggest risk we have. The biggest risk we have is nuclear. I mean, to make the statement, please leave their nuclear alone, I would tell you that that's not the right answer. That was the craziest answer. Because you know what? Soon they're going to have nuclear weapons, and then you're going to have problems.
We heard it from Iran's supreme leader today. He does not come out and give a sermon. He has not done it in years. And yet he did today. And among other things, he expressed solidarity with Palestinians and Hezbollah. And he says Israel won't last long.
Ayatollah Ali Khamenei denounced Iran's enemies, pointing to Israel.
The actions taken by our armed forces a few nights ago was a lawful response.
کاری که نیروهای مسلح ما کردن کمترین مجازات
The operations carried out by our armed forces was the least as a response against the Zionist occupation.
He also spoke of Operation, as he called it, Al-Aqsa Flood, the name that was given to the Hamas-led attack on southern Israel on October the 7th. He described that as a lawful act of resistance.
Hezbollah wants apartheid and ethno-supremacism to be dismantled. In other words, something that in the West is very impossible to imagine. All human beings in Palestine.
Well, he wants Israel destroyed. He wants the destruction of Israel.
Why would you do that when the Iranians and the IRGC are saying death to America too? It defies all logic. Biden has been an Iranian sympathizer from the very beginning. The Obama administration was like this too. The question is, what is Harris going to do? We have to ask her. This is a war happening in the Middle East. So when they talk about escalation, this is already a war.
We're in discussion with that. I think that would be a little, anyway.
What are the plans to allow Israel to strike back against Iran?
First of all, we don't allow Israel. We advise Israel, and there's nothing going to happen today. We'll talk about that later.
Well, look, the bottom line is not whether we have a wider war in the Middle East. We now have a wider war in the Middle East that's going on. And part of this is going to depend on Israel and the targets they decide to strike.
Would you support an attack on Iran's nuclear sites by Israel?
The answer is no. I think there's things we'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do.
This tiny little country is fighting all of America's enemies. And yet you've got a U.S. president who got together with the G7 to decide what Israel should do. And in no world would I have ever expected that he would take the side of the Ayatollah, that he would take the side of the Ayatollah, telling Israel, don't do it, hold back, and calling for restraint.
He called on Muslim nations to unite. He said the enemy is enemy of all of our nations is one. All these countries that he named, basically Egypt, Yemen, he says our enemy is one enemy, and this enemy is trying to divide us.
And what Netanyahu is going for here, he's not going for stop the fighting. He's going for the win.
The Ayatollah told a huge crowd in the Grand Masala Mosque that Iran and its allies must roll up their sleeves and prepare for action.
This isn't a just war between two nations with legitimate gripes. There aren't good people on both sides. This is a democratic ally fighting for its very existence against terrorists.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said Iran will pay after it launched an estimated 180 missiles at Israel yesterday evening. Israel says it intercepted many of the missiles, and officials in Washington say US naval destroyers assisted in Israel's defense. Tehran claims most of its missiles hit their targets. Officials in the occupied West Bank said a Palestinian man was killed by falling rocket fragments, and there were several reports of injuries and damage to buildings. Meanwhile, a former Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, posted on X yesterday, "We must act now to destroy Iran's nuclear program, its central energy facilities, and to fatally cripple this terrorist regime."
In a moment unlike anything we've seen in decades. This is a live look here at Beirut. As the whole region, Israel's ground invasion into Lebanon that we told you about a few minutes ago on the show, it appears to have officially started. In a moment unlike anything we've seen in decades. This is a live look here at Beirut. As the whole region is just teetering on the edge.
Several Israeli airstrikes have hit the southern suburbs of Beirut. A series of loud explosions were heard across the city just after midnight.